Great news! There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price, and it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
On this 50 days to kick off edition of NFL Live, training camp has opened at 8:20 Eastern this morning. The Ravens made it official. We're back. And at 10:45, cornerback Darrelle Revis announces his retirement from the National Football League. That's where we'll start on this midweek edition of NFL Live. Glad to have you along with us. I'm Wendy Nix, Tim Hasselbeck, Louis Riddick, and Hall of Famer Bill Polian. Darrelle Revis had this to say about his retirement. The game of football has opened doors for me I once thought were nearly impossible to get through. My passion to play the game at an elite level brought fun and excitement to the term shutdown corner, which was nearly on the verge of extinction. Covering some of the toughest assignments in league history was a challenge every Sunday, but also an honor within this game we all love. Revis Island then shut down apparently for good. Louis, what will you think of first when you think about his career?
I'll just think that this guy was absolutely your eraser, the human eraser in the defensive backfield that he just mentioned. Look, they put him on the number one receiver throughout his entire career, especially when he was at his prime. And this guy could cover any and all types of wide receivers, Tim. I mean, he could cover the short guys, the quick, darty guys in the slot. He could go outside and cover the guys like Calvin Johnson, who had 4 or 5 inches on him in terms of height. And he could match them all with a tremendous work ethic in terms of how he prepared from a mental standpoint to learn all the nuance of the players he went up against. And when he got up on the line of scrimmage and pressed you, you had to know this. You better bring your A game because Darrelle was going to be in your hip pocket every single snap. I'll tell you this. I'll just share this one story real quick. I remember we were playing the New York Jets when I was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Deshaun Jackson, I could hear him talking to David Culley on the headset, and he was telling Culley, I can't shake him. I can't get Revis off of me. And he kept saying it every series because Darrelle was tagging him the whole game. He was like that. He was an absolute assassin as a cornerback as far as shutting down your number one guy. And he's a Pitt grad.
Yeah. I like how he slips that in. Yeah.
He has a Pitt grad. You know what else? Corner is a hard position, period. But then to be the best at the position when you're playing the game, that's difficult. But then it's usually easy, to get knocked off of that spot. And I think he probably held that spot for a good stretch. And so I think that's something that's not easily attained and probably what I will remember him for in terms of that. But then also the other aspect of it is how he played the business of football, too. I mean, because he believed in his talent and he was very good, he was able to negotiate in a way to make himself a lot of money, which, is also a goal for a lot of guys that play in the league. He did an excellent job of maximizing what he could make in, 11 years of playing pro football.
And deservedly so. For about 7 or so years, he was the best cornerback in football. And the thing that I think set him apart was his ability to play the ball at the point of the catch. He covered as well as anybody in the game. He pressed better than anybody in the game. But his reaction at the point of the catch with his hands, with his ability to break up plays, with his ability to play through the receiver was unparalleled. And he did it for 7 or so years at the highest possible level. He was the best player in the game. So whatever he earned, and you're right, he played the system well. Whatever he earned every penny of it.
He did, and there were a lot of those pennies because since his 2007 rookie season, Revis, the only defensive back to ever take home over $100 million in cash value. But we'll look ahead because today is the big 5-0, and by that we mean just 50 days away now from the start of the 2018 NFL season. So throughout the rest of the show, we will take a look at the 50 storylines we'll be watching for the upcoming season.
9 seconds left. Eagles by 8.
The offseason began with history.
He is throwing it deep for the end zone, and it is incomplete. And the game is over. The game is over. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
5 months later, the quest for Super Bowl immortality begins again.
Let your name in stone right now.
50 days to grind, 50 days to prepare.
You have a time to peak the two special routes?
Working our thunder route on the stick concept.
50 days to rivalries. 50 days to opportunity.
Let's go, boy.
50 days to kickoff.
That dramatic reading, courtesy of our
Wow.
Lewis Riddick. Nicely done. Watch out, everybody. Here he comes. Listen, watch out. Here the season comes. 50 days away. I feel like it was yesterday we did the 100-day thing, and now we've just got 50 to go. So we'll start with this. Le'Veon Bell failed to reach an agreement with the Steelers on Monday for a long-term contract. That means he'll play a second consecutive season under the franchise tag. Bill, the question now, will he be at training camp? Likely not. So let me ask it this way. Will he miss games?
I don't believe he'll miss games. I think he'll come back after the cut to 53, just at the time when we get ready for the first game. And since it takes about 3 weeks for a player to get ready to play and be in condition to play, he'll be subpar probably for 2 or 3 weeks. But from there on in, go ahead and go. But it's each game that he plays or does not play in the regular season would cost him well over $800,000. I don't think he's willing to walk away from that.
And Lewis, yesterday on our timeline, as we looked at the Steelers' calendar, you felt like, about a week prior, the Monday or so prior to the opening game?
Yeah, I mean, as Bill alluded to, after the roster's cut down to 53, you figure that Monday is when teams will come in and kind of get a pre-look at the team they're going to play. Then they'll have off Tuesday, and then they'll get back onto it Wednesday in terms of a normal work week. You would assume maybe by that Wednesday is maybe the day he'll show up. And I know that's when Mike Tomlin, like I said, he'll be at the door going, hey.
Well, as Tim said, you got your flight? You all good? We good here?
And that's what he did last year. He had 400 touches and was outstanding.
Yeah, so there you have it.
Exactly right.
After the Rams announced a 5-year contract extension for Brandon Cooks yesterday, the obvious question became, what about Aaron Donald? He, however, skipped OTAs and mandatory minicamp. He is looking for a deal that should make him the highest paid defensive player in the league. Lewis, if no new deal is in place, do you expect Donald to hold out?
This is a tricky one, Wendy. I don't know if he'd be willing to miss games. Maybe he would. I don't know. This is a tough one to call. I mean, obviously we've sat here and we've just churned this discussion around about why haven't they gotten him signed. I'm sure, as I've spoken to other people, look, I'm sure that the Rams have made him a significant offer. I'm sure they know this number is going to be groundbreaking, and it's going to make your head spin as far as what you see the average per year in guaranteed money going to be. Is Aaron willing to miss games? Is he willing to miss paychecks in order to go ahead and get that record-setting contract? Only he knows. Only his representatives know. I would venture to say he doesn't. I would venture to say he doesn't hold out and that he will play this season because the kid just flat out loves to play football. And if you look at how he is working right now, I mean, it's 24/7 with him as far as how he prepares. And I just think he will want to play with his teammates considering how high the expectations are for that team this year.
All right, Odell Beckham Jr. would like a new deal as well, but the Giants star receiver did sort of offer an olive branch, if you will. He was a participant in the voluntary offseason activities. And listen, the question now, when these two sides come together, Tim, how much do you expect OBJ to participate in training camp?
I think he'll practice a lot in training camp. He's a guy, much like Lewis was talking about Aaron Donald, he's a guy that loves to practice and compete. He loves that aspect of it. I'm not sure how much we'll see him in the preseason, if at all, in actual games being tackled by opponents, but everyone will know that you're not supposed to touch him in practice, and I think we'll see him practice and participate and learn that offense like everybody else on that New York Giants roster.
Don't tune in late if you want to see him, because in the preseason, I think one series and bye-bye.
The first 35 seconds, you better make sure you're dialed in.
Exactly right.
All right, fair enough. We continue to make our way through 50 storylines we're watching. Carson Wentz was well on his way to an MVP-caliber season when a torn ACL ended his year. Backup quarterback Nick Foles took it from there, and the rest, as they say, is Philadelphia history. Lewis Wentz's recovery has reportedly been on track, but I'll ask you, will he be ready for week one? You're getting the hard ones today.
I know. I'm going to say I'm going to say no. I'm going to say they take it slow with Carson because they have the luxury of having Nick Foles there. And it's just one of those things. I mean, why wouldn't you take advantage of that kind of situation? Why would you want to risk anything as far as his long-term recovery and the, availability of him playing for maybe, 10, 15 years with the same organization, which I am sure that is what Jeffrey Lurie has envisioned for him when he picked him in the first round anyway. So why rush it? He may be ready to play and may be able to function in a game at that point in time, but I'm sure they will want to see no limping, no favoring the injured leg whatsoever, so he can actually play at the highest level. So I'm going to say no.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I cannot think of a reason on earth to rush this. I mean, there's not one.
You're right, but I will say this.
Right there.
That was well before training camp, okay? And they're rolling balls around his feet, okay? He's doing a lot then. I would be shocked if he's not there. That's a risky thing to do to a guy that's coming off an ACL injury.
You know what? Here's the discussion that they'll have. Prior to the third preseason game, which is, of course, the dress rehearsal, they'll say, to the doctors and to the trainers and the strength and conditioning staff, is Carson 100%? If the answer is no, then he'll sit until he is 100%. If the answer is yes, then go. But it's going to have to be 100%. And I've been in those meetings, chaired some of them. The question will be, don't tell me maybe he's 99. Don't tell me he's 98 and he'll be 100 by then. Is he 100% now? If he's not, we're going to sit him.
Fair enough. And here is the reason why. Because speaking of quarterbacks, it's been more than a full season since we've seen Andrew Luck in a uniform on the field throwing a football. The Colts quarterback, of course, suffered a series of setbacks as he tried to make his way back from shoulder surgery. A timeline for his return is still unclear, although he's making progress. Bill, when will we see Andrew Luck at full strength?
Well, you're going to see him at some point this season. I don't know if it's going to be week 1. A lot will depend on how he develops through training camp. There's a long way to go. There's 6 weeks to go before you even have to make a decision. So I'm going to say 50-50 for the first game, but he is like Carson Wentz. They're not going to put him out there until he's 100%. He's close to that now. He's got a chance.
Got a chance. Bill, you got 50 on the brain, too.
Yes, I do.
50-50. As we make our way through 50 storylines we're watching. Lewis, do you anticipate any additional setbacks?
No, I don't think so. I think without a doubt, they're going to exercise extreme caution. And Andrew himself has said he's going to exercise extreme caution because he messed up last time, plain and simple. And I'm interested. I'll tell you what. I kind of like their backup situation, too, although obviously Jacoby Brissett has never won a Super Bowl. I really like this kid and someone who I got behind when they acquired him in the first place. And I think he would benefit tremendously from Frank Reich, which is, we've talked about a bigger picture about quarterbacks and how important those relationships are. I'm interested to see if that kid has to play, how Frank could help him the same way he helped Nick Foles and Carson Wentz and all these other quarterbacks he's been involved with. So
that's a really good point. A year ago, they weren't set up to be as successful without Andrew. They're much better equipped to survive a few games if he isn't 100%, as Bill said.
Opening day of the 2018 season, now just 50 days away, so a perfect time to look at 50 of the most pressing storylines heading into a new league year. School back in session in Baltimore. The Ravens veterans report to camp today at their practice facility in Owings Mills, Maryland. Baltimore can start camp early because they are playing August 2nd in the second Hall of Fame game. The Ravens offseason began with the departure of defensive coordinator Dean Pease. The team promoted linebackers coach Don Martindale to D.C. The team beefed up its wideouts, snagging Michael Crabtree, John Brown, and Willie Snead via free agency. And Joe Flacco has new company in the quarterback room. Team signed RG3 and drafted Lamar Jackson in the first round. The drafting, of course, of any quarterback will create some buzz and a potential controversy, so we'll start there. Do you get the sense that we'll see any of that in Baltimore during training camp, Lewis?
You know what? I don't get the sense that we're going to see any kind of controversy with these two. I think they understand that, look, Joe Flacco right now has really been set up to succeed, I believe, in 2018 with the acquisitions that they made this offseason, both via the draft and through veteran player acquisitions. Last year, you couldn't say that he was set up to succeed. They had no perimeter speed. They had no perimeter playmaking ability. But they really have, I think, configured the wide receiver room just how you're supposed to. They have a big physical guy in Michael Crabtree. They have tremendous speed in John Brown. Willie Snead's a guy who can kind of play inside and outside. And then in the draft, they go out and get Hayden Hurst, who, quite honestly, I'm not saying he's Dennis Pitta, but I'm saying this. He has a skill set in terms of his ability to beat one-on-one coverage, make contested catches, run after the catch, as good as any tight end that we've seen in a long time. So I like what they've done here. I think with Lamar Jackson, it's let him sit and watch and let him be a quarterback, which is what you drafted him for. And don't rush him. You have the luxury of not rushing him. So I think his time will come somewhere down the road, Wendy.
I don't think there's a quarterback controversy, or there'll be one, but I know this. There is pressure on Joe Flacco. Plain and simple, when you're a starting quarterback and you draft the position in the first round, you know that the organization is planning on that guy playing at some point, probably sooner rather than later. And so Flacco should feel like he's a starter this year, because everything you said, Lewis, is right. I mean, there's no rush for Lamar Jackson to be their starting quarterback. But Joe Flacco is now in a situation where he may not be the starting quarterback for the Ravens a year from now. So there's pressure to play well, or you're going to hear people chanting his name, and you're probably most likely playing somewhere else next year anyhow.
I don't think there'll be one within the building.
Right.
Because Ozzie won't allow it and John won't allow it. But there will be one, especially in talk radio, because Lamar is going to be on the field with a specialized package. He's going to be doing the amazing things that Lamar can do with the ball in his hands, and that will be fodder for the talk radio genre, and they will gin up a controversy. The difficulty for the Ravens is going to be to fight that off, and I'm sure they're already planning on that.
And I think that's such an important distinction that you make, Tim. There's a difference between an internal controversy and pressure. The pressure is really not debatable. I mean, that's just how it works. Number 7 now in our list of 50 topics as we make our way to 50 days to kick off. Are the Ravens playoff contenders, given all those pieces that were put in place, Lewis, that you referenced, or are they pretenders, Bill?
I think they're pretenders, acknowledging what Lou said. I'm not sure that they've improved the receiving corps enough, because the other contenders are Tennessee, Houston, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh. You kind of almost cede the division to, and Cincinnati. Are they going to say nothing of the other divisions of the AFC? So they're essentially competing for a wild card spot. Are they good enough to get the wild card spot in a deep AFC? I don't think so. They'll be improved, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I see Bill's point, and I agree to a certain extent, no question about it. I'm thinking and I'm hoping, just for the sake of seeing this team kind of, get back to where it used to be in the early 2000s when it was a contender and it was winning a Super Bowl. I'm thinking that they have enough of a varied skill set on offense to go ahead and make a jump and be in contention for the wild card spot and be one of those teams that's fighting it out at 10-6, 9-7, maybe even 11-5. But Joe has to really be the one who carries the torch, and he has to play much better than last year, regardless of what he didn't have. And defensively, they've got to be the old Ravens. I'm not saying 2000 Ravens, but they got to be the old Ravens.
Listen, you mentioned Joe has to play better. Look, I think it's going to be difficult, because I think we probably all agree there's going to be some type of package for Lamar. There's going to be something where he's on the field. He's too exciting and too talented for them not to use him in some way. And I don't know that there's a quarterback that's ever played that likes when they have to come off for somebody else to kind of play quarterback or do that. It's hard, and it's hard to adjust to it, and especially if you're not used to ever doing it before. And so I agree. Flacco needs to play better. I think it's going to be even harder for him to play better, because they're also going to be working on doing stuff for Lamar. I mean, Marty Morningwig's number one, the offensive coordinator, his task is going to be get them ready every week. But who's he coaching and building up? I mean, he's doing that for Lamar. And so I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be a tough year for Joe Flacco.
Well, one more data point, if you will. ESPN's Football Power Index gives the Ravens a 46% chance to make the playoffs. That's the 6th highest mark in the AFC.
AARP can help you become your healthiest self. It's why we offer health tips for your body and your brain. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
He's yet to play a snap for the Rams, but the team has signed Brandon Cooks to a 5-year contract extension. It's reportedly worth $80 million, according to our Adam Schefter. Cooks was acquired in an offseason trade with the New England Patriots. He has been on a tear, recording a 1,000-yard receiving campaign each of the last 3 seasons, proving he's one of the biggest deep threats in the league. Since the start of 2015, Cooks has logged the most receiving yards on passes thrown 20 yards or more down the field. In that time, he's also had the second most catches and third most touchdowns on throws of that nature. We continue to make our way through 50 topics, 50 storylines we're watching now that we're 50 days from the start of a new season. And there are a number of questionable contract situations. We touched on a few earlier. We will continue. And I'll ask you, Tim, about Aaron Rodgers and when we'll see that extension get done.
I think it'll be before training camp. Look, everyone knows that Aaron Rodgers deserves a new deal. The Green Bay Packers know that Aaron deserves a new deal. And they know that it's going to be record-breaking, quite honestly. And so I think it's a matter of, both sides that seem to have clear lines of communication, just go ahead and getting it wrapped up before the season starts. But when you hear Mark Murphy talk about it, you hear Aaron talk